Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be going over the great book of Protoss bullshit. How to hold it, how to scout it, how to deal with it, all that good stuff. I've been really disappointed lately. I haven't been able to find any, mid-masters players that are willing to play with me in the middle of the night because I'm nocturnal. So I haven't been able to put out content, and that's been bugging me. And, I had this huge influx of putting out videos, and now it's just kind of dying off. I don't like that. So until I'm able to find some more practice partners, which I know I will eventually, I'm going to just go over briefly how to hold pretty much every bullshit Protoss build that they're going to throw at you on the ladder. Once I do find some people to play with, I will absolutely go back, cover all these again, and show you how to properly do them in real time. But until then, let's just kind of cover the basics. Let's go over the majority of the builds that they're going to throw at you on the ladder, and let's fuck them up. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so coming up first, we have the Margaery. Now, this is a build that involves a Warp Prism, 2 Immortals, and a lot of charge lots very early on. Popularized by Hearthstone. He's an amazing guy, and for good reason. Whenever he puts out a video, take it to the bank that every Protoss out there that's like mid-masters below is going to learn that build. They're going to use that build. So even as a Zerg player, I would highly suggest watching his build videos because, well, you're going to have to learn how to hold them. So I'll leave a link to the description below for Hearthstone's channel. Credit where credit's due. I'm going to use his video, so just so you can kind of get an idea of what it is. So let's dive right into it.
The way you want to micro is you're not really you're never chasing him. So this is how you do it. You just basically hold position your Immortals, and then whenever he comes in with his roaches, you send in your zealots for 1 charge wave, basically. And then you hope that that is enough. Most of the time it is fine. But when you're fighting with your zealots, always all of your zealots should be there, obviously.
And there we have it. That's what the Margaery looks like in action. It hits hard, like a goddamn truck. And if you aren't ready for it, it will roll you over. And believe me, Vanya is like a 6.6k Zerg. He's incredible. So, it can take games off of the best Zergs in the world. So now let's go over quickly how to scout it. Alright, so as you can see, I'm not exactly Hearthstone. I'm not, a 6k Protoss player, but 449, I'm moving out with the Warp Prism. I've got my 2 Immortals. I've got my Adept that was plugging the wall, which the Stalker will fill that role. A couple Zealots. My gateways, my extra gateways are finishing up, and we're moving across the map to go kill a Zerg player if there was one here. So what do we do to scout this as a Zerg player? Well, there's a couple things. One, it went gas first. So we will not see a probe scout at all. And if we do, it's going to be incredibly late. Therefore, you'll notice it pretty quickly when your natural didn't get blocked and nothing is scouting you for the first minute and a half of the game. You're kind of just left to your own. This is quite a gamble on the Protoss side because they're going to auto lose to 12 pools. But if they know their opponent, or sometimes it's just worth taking a gamble. So that's the first thing we'll notice. The second step to scouting the Margaery will come in here. Once again, we're going to see no gases. Gases taken, sorry, but nothing mining from the gases. That's a huge tell. Protoss doesn't pull off gas. They make gases when they need them. Once they need them, they make them, they saturate them till they're empty. They will not pull off gas. I mean, they may pull off one worker here and there to make a build order a bit tighter, but it's not in the same sense as Zerg players. So if you see this, it's an all-in. Is it the Margaery? Probably, but there are a couple other builds where they pull off gas. So it's going to be pull off gas is the second big one. The third one, we're going to come in. Again, we're going to notice the Stalker. Why is there a Stalker there? Because there isn't a Stargate. He needs to push back the Overlord somehow. He doesn't want you scouting. That's a beautiful thing about the Stargate opener, is we can deny scouting for a very long time. Without a Stargate, Stalker's our second best option. So that's why when you see a Stalker, almost guaranteed going to be a Twilight or Robo, or combination of the two opener. And then our final giveaway. No third. Incredible number of gateways. Now, you might not see all the gateways lined up like this. I just did it to make it easier. You might see, 2 gateways here, 2 back here, 2 over here, 2 plug in the wall, whatever. You might see them a little spread out. But if you look hard enough, you will find the gateways. And if it's only a stalker, you don't even need Overlord speed. As long as you come in from a weird angle, you will get a decent enough scout. Even if your Overlord came in from here, saw these gates, and saw no gas being mined just from this one gas geyser that's already built, that's a good enough scout to know that something is coming. And we're going to talk about these builds. There's 3 or 4 of these builds where our response is nearly identical. So if we scout this, we might not need to even know 100% what it is, because our response will almost be identical to a few other builds. So that is how we're going to scout the Margaery. Now, how do we hold it? Okay, so I'm going to do this on Abyssal Reef because I just miss Abyssal Reef. And it really doesn't matter what map it's on. I love this map so much. I'm not going to try hard it. I'm not going to do any real fancy tricks or anything. It's just going to be a very straightforward, this is how we're going to respond. This is what it's going to look like.
Good luck. Have fun.
So, we send our first Overlord across the map. There isn't a pervert pillar that I remember on Abyssal. There's not. So, whatever. Pretend this is a pervert pillar. Second Overlord, we're going to our natural. And we have a second to kill. I'm going to pause for a second.
AFK, BRB.
Even though this is a very easy AI, pretend it's not for a second. He opened up Stalker. That should immediately rouse our suspicions. Why did he open up Stalker? Why is he pushing back our Overlord? We have a couple different options. We could go into Overlord speed, but that gas, the fact that we've already pulled off gas, that gas really can't be invested in Overlord speed, only because if it truly is either the Soul Train, the Margaery, Charge all in, Glaive Adepts all in, that 100 gases, we really need it. So let's go for the next best option. Let's get another Overlord, which we already do, across the map. Earlier the better. And let's send our Lings across the map, because he hasn't come at us yet. We have the ability to do so. We haven't had to defend against an Adept. So we'll get a little one creep tumor going. Let's keep our injects going. So our link speed's done. And boom, we see a robot. And again, I know it's a very easy AI. It doesn't really matter what the fuck he's doing. But we got the scout. Now let's pretend he's not mining gas. We now know what we're up against. We have now successfully scouted the Margaery for all intents and purposes. So here is where we need to deviate from standard.
Okay, on the
Immediately, 2 back in gas.
Siege up.
Let's take 2 more gases, and let's throw down our Roach Warren. Our third is not going to be saturated. We do not need drones there. All we need is it for production. It's going to continuously create larvae. That's all we need it for at this moment. Now we are at 41 drones. That is all we are going to make. We don't need a layer. I am going to get a spore at my third just in case, because it could be Glaive Adepts. I'm not 100% sure, but you know. Now, let's make a couple overlords so we can free up some supply. Keep our injects going is very, 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 very crucial. And from here, all we are doing is making roaches. That's it. Now, if this was Hearthstone, obviously he'd be hitting right now. Do I have any roaches out? No. Again, I didn't do any fancy tricks. I've just been doing this as normal as anyone else would do, right? All we have to do is pressure until we get enough roaches out. This is the common theme I see in so many replays that I've helped, like, in so many replays that I've watched for people and tried to help them out and coach them. They commit too early. So, yeah, I don't have any roaches out. And in a second, even though I've got 11 queued up right now, and I'll be able to queue up a bunch more, I'm only going to have 5 or 6 that pop. Do I really want to send my first 5 or 6 roaches over there to kill his immortals? Quote unquote kill? No, because they're going to get slaughtered. Now, I don't want to lose my third either. The third is really, really important. If you lose it, is it GG? Likely, but no, not immediately at least. So all we need to do is go forward with our roaches and try and push him back a little bit. Just body check him. And when I say that, I mean just threaten him. Be intimidating. It's like a bear. Yeah, that bear is, 1,000 pounds bigger than me, but if I scream loud enough, I might startle it for a second and it stops. So that's all we need to do. We need to go forward with our roaches and pull back. We don't commit until we have a big enough ball.
Okay,
So,
let's go.
our first roaches that are going, we can go ahead and pull our queens. We want to have them in a position where they're going to be useful so they can snipe the prism. As our first roaches pop out, we come up here and we pull back. We're going to do a quick A move, pull back. And all we're doing is constantly making roaches. Quick A move, pop back. As the prism comes in, if this overlord's a prism, the queens start attacking it. As the zealots dive on the queens, we pull the queens back. Roaches go in, we pull back. We just want to keep our third alive. And eventually, we're going to have a huge amount of roaches.
AFK.
Now,
BRB.
the roaches deal with the charge lots very, very well. So, the charge lots aren't really the biggest threat. They're a meat shield, and early on, they are going to be a big threat. But as we get more and more roaches, they're going to be less and less of a threat. The true threat is the Immortal and the Warp Prism. If we cannot kill the Warp Prism, don't expect to kill the Immortals. Because any decent Protoss with decent enough micro is going to juggle those Immortals. It's not as difficult as you think. Now, obviously, it's difficult to be flashy like the pros and shit you see in GSL, but it's not that difficult to juggle Immortals. And that's something you have to keep in mind. Because if we can't kill that Prism, they're likely not going to die. And those 2 Immortals can pretty much kill every goddamn roach you make. So, queens are another important part. Long end of the short of it, honestly, 41 drones, no layer, roach warren, non-stop roaches. That's how we hold the Margaery. All right, coming up next, obviously the outfit change. I just got back. We're going to talk about the Soul Train. Now, the Soul Train's a build that you're not going to see a ton anymore. It's a very flashy build. It's a lot of fun to pull off as the Protoss. But again, it's just not that popular anymore. It's still worth going over because if you ever see it on the ladder or you have to deal with it, you'll at least know what to do against it. So before we get into it, let's just look at what the Soul Train is.
Are out. This is a timing push, one of the many timing push variations that Protoss has.
All right, here we go. 5 sentries, 2 immortals. He's got that prism in the center as well. Does have an observer coming, so he'll be able to clear some of this creep. Roaches being made. Looks like a scary push for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one. First force field goes down. He boxes out the queens from going directly up towards the hatchery, but he hasn't committed with his force field so far. There's really not a lot here for DRG. The Immortals are in a pretty good position.
Yeah, DRG just does not have many units. Like, he has 19 lings right now, and that's it. It seems like Hurricane's just going to smash
Yeah,
through this.
this looks pretty fearsome. I don't think DRG was expecting this. I was talking earlier about how he tends to hold a lot of stuff off. I think this is almost over, man. I mean, by the way, super committal here from Hurricane. He's gonna just basically move past the hatchery. There's not drones mining there. If he can win the fight over here at the natural, the game ends immediately.
There's like no units. I mean, he's just gonna plow through. Like his micro's okay here and everything, but he barely even needs it, honestly.
Yeah.
Force field's going down, a little bit of pullback for Spiles, but it's just so few units for DRG. He's starting to fight with drones, and that's when you know he is in trouble.
Ooh, dodges the bio, but I think it was all.
That's what the Soul Train looks like. And again, it's a very flashy build. There's lots of ways they can use the force fields, but unless you're ready for it, those force fields will ruin you. They can just cut off your army, and they can just take fights little by little. They can say, hey, look, you've got 8 roaches over here and 2 over here. Well, we'll force field the 8, we'll pick off the 2, and then as the 8 come out, hey, we'll force field them in half, so we'll only have to deal with 4, and then there's still 4 that are blocked, and it's frustrating. Now, this was a build that was very, very popular in Heart of the Swarm before we had the luxury of Ravagers. Ravagers are going to be a huge key in how to deal with this, because Ravagers are the earliest unit we can get out that can break force fields. So, before we jump into that, let's talk about how we scout it. Okay, so we're going to jump into the replay, and we're going to go straight to the 3-minute mark. This is the timing of our initial scout. So we come in, and what do we see? Well, we see a robo being built. That is a very good read. Anytime a robo is being built first as a tech in Protoss versus Zerg, you can almost guarantee that it's going to be some form of aggression. The only exception, as I've already talked about, is Archon drop. But the response to any sort of aggression also works quite well with Archon drop. Anytime we see a robo opening, our safest bet is 3 hatcheries, 41 drones, 3 gas geysers, Roach Warren at 3 minutes 45 seconds, non-stop roaches until we hold. That is our safest bet. Now let's speed this up, because this already is a very good read. But let's say we come back in at the 4-minute mark for a follow-up scout to see, hey, what exactly are you doing behind this? We come in, what are we going to see? No additional tech. We see an extra gateway, we see a robo, we see 2 gases still being mined from, and we see a 3rd gas going down. Now, does this rule out the possibility of proxies? No, but it's pretty unlikely. If they're going to proxy something, the only thing that would hit at this time, like that hasn't already hit is what I mean to say, is likely a Dark Shrine, but we don't even see a Templar, or like we don't see anything that would scream DTs. So it's unlikely. But what do I think when I see robo only, additional gateways going down, and an additional gas geyser? Something that's gas intensive, like sentries. Boom, boom. So, that is our first tell that this is going to be a Soul Train push. Another big tell you're going to see, because the first thing that they're going to get out of their robo bay is going to be a warp prism for 2 reasons. They can push back the Overlord that's sitting on the pervert pillar because they'll have high ground vision, so they can push it back with the Stalker. The second one is because this is a timing attack and it's so brutal when it hits, we need to make sure, well, the Protoss player needs to make sure that they have all of their ducks in a row. So they don't want to risk losing anything or taking a little bit of early aggression, like a Ling running in or something like that. So what are they going to do? After they push back that Overlord, they're going to send the Warp Prism that they made across the map with the 2 Adepts that they're always going to make, and they're going to try and get a little bit of damage to be annoying and keep you at home. So if we see this combined with a Robo Opener, it's also a really good tell that it's going to be the Soul Train. Now this isn't unique to the Soul Train, but it's something that happens almost every Soul Train player is going to do this. They're going to do a little bit of harassment with their Warp Prism so they can buy themselves some time to get out the more Immortals, to get out more Sentries, and so that the Sentries can get energy. The more energy they have, the more force fields they can use. So this is another big tell. Now, what time does this normally hit? Because there's absolutely no tech behind it. There's no Twilight Council, there's no Blink, there's no Charge, there's no nothing. It's going to hit earlier. So this build usually hits around the 5:30 to 6-minute mark. They're usually leaving their base at like 10 after 5, anywhere from 5:10 to like 5:20, they're moving out, they're ready to hit you. Depending on the rush distance, I would expect them to be there by 5:30, 6 at the absolute latest. We have Robo Opener, 1, 2 gas, 3 gas. Lots of pylons going down. How many gates are they going to get? Usually it's like 5. They don't need a ton of gates. All of this is really on the sentries. So no additional tech, Robo, and a 3rd gas. That's how we scout this. This is our giveaway. Now they're moving out. Now because there's no AI, I'm just warping in here, right? This is just me in a custom game. I actually struggled to find like any decent VODs of this in Legacy of the Void. This is an older build, but it still absolutely has been used and still is used in Legacy on the ladder. And here we go. This is what it's going to look like. They force field this off, or they gum up here and they force field this off, so they're up here, and they're just going to force field you so that they can take best engagements possible. They'll limit the amount of units that can come their way. It's frustrating, but this is how we scout it. Now, how do we deal with it? That's a great question. It's going to be the generic safety opener. 3 hatches, 41 drones, 3 gas geysers, roach horn at 345, non-stop roaches, with the exception of Ravagers this time. How many Ravagers? Don't use all your gas on Ravagers. But I would say the best number we could have is 3 at bare minimum, but I'd ideally like to see 5-ish. Why? Because if one gets picked off and we only have 3, that's a big deal. How many Ravager Biles does it take to break a force field? 1. How many Ravager Biles does it take to kill a warp prism? 3. So if they siege up that warp prism to get some warp ins, and we have the ability to snipe the prism, we've stopped the reinforcements. That is huge. That is game ending. But until we get that ability, all we need to do is make roaches with a couple of Ravagers, because Ravagers cost a lot of gas. In total, they're 100 gas, because it's 25 for the roach and 75 for the Ravager. So we don't want to waste all of our gas on Ravagers. But we do need a few. 1 bile per force field, and it's the same as the Margaery. Just overwhelm them with roaches. This one is a little bit different because there's no charge. They don't have 8 gateways. They're not going to be warping in non-stop zealots. They're relying heavily on a few stalkers, a few immortals, and the sentry force fields to break apart your army so that they can pick it apart. All we need to do when we think about this, and we see this, and we scout it, is, hey, I need to do exactly what I've always been doing against any sort of aggressive 2-base all-in versus Protoss. 41 drones, non-stop roaches, but this time I need to throw in just like 3 to 5 Ravagers, just for the biles to break the force fields. And that's how we deal with the Soul Train. Pretty simple, right? All right. Now, let's move on to another one. All right. So the other big build that we're going to use the general safety opener for is the 2-base charge lot all-in, a build I've already covered in a previous video. I will link that video here, but it's going to be the same defense. 41 drones, 3 hatcheries, queens, 3 gas geysers, 345 roach warren. That is the general rule of thumb. That is the most stock standard safety opener. If we are unsure or we are sure, doesn't matter, and we know it's going to be a robo-based 2-base all-in, that is your safest bet. Now, with each build, each robo build, you know, depending on if it's Soul Train, the Margaery, charge all-in, it varies just a slight bit how we're going to respond. However, for the most part, 99% of it is the same. I don't even need to repeat it. You already know how we're going to do it. So, with that being said, let's talk about the Void Ray charge lot all-in that's been plaguing the ladder. How are we going to deal with it? How we're going to scout it? All that good stuff. So, jumping right into it, let's talk about what it looks like.
Just in case I need to transition. And that's it, like you just keep warping in Zealots. Now the ideal thing to do right now would be to chrono boost your gateways. If you have the APM to do that, but I know it's not that easy. And that's it, you just win the game like this. There was a 5.4 Zerg that also scouted the build. So I feel like it was pretty good. I also faced this guy again and I managed to win against Baelings.
Now, it's important to note that there's two different variants that I've seen of this build. There might be more, but I've really only seen two. There is the 3 Nexi Robo variant that you just saw, where he gets the Robo, gets the Warp Prism. Then there is the 2 base version, where they skip the Robo, and they just proxy a gateway for faster warp-ins. The biggest difference is the 3 Nexi, it's a little bit later, and it's still all in, but it's just not as committed. They have a little bit of an easier time macroing out of it if you hold it. Whereas the 2 base version is a lot more committed. It hits a little bit earlier, makes it a little bit more difficult for the Zerg, but if they hold it, GG. Not that it's not GG with 3 Nexuses. They're still very much so all in, but it's just the level of commitment. You know, there's a chance they can macro out of this with 3 Nexuses, depending on how much damage they got done, of course. But with that being said, let's talk about how to scout it. Okay, so we're jumping into replay, scouting it. We come in here at the 3-minute mark. Everything looks pretty normal. So we have a single gateway, Cybercore, Nexus, they expanded. We have the Adept there. There should be another one somewhere going across the map, or another one being made in this case. And we see a Stargate opener. Now, again, at the 3-minute mark, this looks completely normal. Because as of right now, it is. So how are we going to differentiate Void Ray Charge Lot all-in from a normal Stargate opener? Well, again, it is difficult, but there are a few tells. So let's fast forward this a bit. So the very first thing that's going to come out of the Stargate 9 times out of 10 nowadays is going to be the Void Ray to push away the Overlords. It's going to be difficult to get a scout off of. So let's say we go up to the 4-minute mark when we follow up and we say, I wonder what the hell he's really doing. Now we see a Twilight Council. Well, that's a decent giveaway because, for one, if they're opening up with Stargate, a lot of the time what they're going to follow that up with is Robo. If they're going straight Twilight, it could be a lot of things, but likely it's going to be Charge. Combine this with the fact that we should always be keeping a Ling, just one Ling, on hold position, deselected from all of our army hotkeys on the 3rd bases. So either this one or this one, like ideally both, so that we know when the Protoss is going to take their 3rd if they are. But this is, well, I can't say for certain that this is, you know, absolutely we see a Stargate and a Twilight, it is Void Ray Charge. It's very likely. Moving on. There's going to be, like I said, this is going to be a difficult build to scout. But here is our second absolute, we know it, giveaway. First off, before we even talk about the gateways, do not be fooled by a fake 3rd. We need to know the normal timing for a Protoss to take their 3rd base in PvZ. The normal timing is somewhere between 4:30 to 5 minutes. Now, just because we see a 3rd going down, especially when it's at the later point, when it's, 5:30, something like that, does not mean that this isn't a 2-base all-in. What that 3rd means is either, hey, look, I'm faking you, and they'll cancel it, or they're saying, hey, look, I'm faking you, and they'll keep it, and it's just an insurance policy. If their all-in doesn't go as well as they planned, they already have their 3rd, so they can potentially micro or macro out of it. In this game, I didn't make a 3rd. Why? Because lots of times you're not going to see a 3rd. You might, but it doesn't make that big of a difference. What the biggest tell is going to be is if we do see a 3rd, are there probes? If there's not, it's likely a fake. Now, coming back here, we now know, because I've talked about it in previous videos, the correct number of gateways per bases. When you see a Protoss on 2 bases, what is the normal amount of gateways? 5. How many should they go up to once their 3rd base is established? 7 to 8, and then as it gets later, they can go up to any number they want. It's not uncommon to see 10 plus gateways in the late game. But if they are on 2 bases, and we see more than 5 gateways, which in this case we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what do you think that means? Why would they have 6 gateways? Because they're gonna be aggressive. Yeah. There's also one more tell in this build, and that is one of the gateways is going to be proxied for faster warp-ins. Because they're not getting a Robo in this build, they're not getting a Prism. So, we do need to be scouting around the map. And look, there it is. Now, What time does this build hit? Depends on the player, but I'd say roughly between like 5:30, 6 minutes as well. How do we respond? Now that's a great question, because there really isn't a super concrete answer that I'm aware of yet. There's a couple different ways to defend it. So we're going to go over, in my opinion, the easiest way to defend it. This is how I defend it. So, in my humble opinion, the easiest way to defend this push is exactly the same as every other one. 41 drones, 3 hatcheries, Roach Horn at 345. The unique thing about this build, we're going to non-stop produce queens. Now, every build, like I said, that when we're dealing with 2 base has some form of unique form to it. But all we need is roaches to deal with the charge lots, because that's going to be the core force of this army, is charge lots. How many voids are they going to have? 3. There might be another one being chronoed across the map, but this is not mass void ray. Do we need hydralisks? No. All we need is queens and roaches. Queens, ideally, I'd like to see like 6, but in terms of micro, how are we going to defend this? We need our roaches to be in the front line, and at all costs, we need to protect our queens. Because once we snipe the void rays, the threat is over. We can just continue to produce roaches to delete their charge lots, move across the map, and win the game. So, to reiterate, do not lose our queens. That is our biggest priority. Because if we cannot kill the void rays will inevitably slowly kill all of our roaches, and then the charge lots will just overwhelm and kill all of our workers and tech. So, protect our queens with the roaches. Kill the charge lots with the roaches. Control click our queens. Attack move onto the void rays. Hold the push. Win the game. That is Void Ray Charge Lot all in. All right, and that pretty much does it for this episode. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, please consider liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing. It really does help. I do appreciate it. I really, really do. If there's a video you want to see or something you're struggling with, please leave a comment below. I will absolutely help you out. And as always, good luck, have fun. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.